My name is Bryan McDaniel with EasyDownsizing.com, and today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about appraisals. We often get calls from people wanting appraisals on items, and it's something that we do. I'm a certified appraiser. But before we get into that, I want to mention to you, explain to you what an appraiser is and what an appraiser isn't. In the United States, there are no governing agencies that oversee appraisers. There's no licensing in any state in the United States. So if you want to call yourself an appraiser, by all means, call yourself an appraiser. There are certifying agencies out there that will certify you, but their certifications are basically going to be that you met whatever requirement they are certifying you to have met, such as you attended a 16-hour class. That's what they're certifying that you had done. So they're not going to certify you as a qualified appraiser. They're just going to certify that you had met whatever it was, the requirements that they've set that you need to meet. So that being said, now when you get something certified by somebody or appraised by somebody, as it were, you need to kind of make sure they know what it is they're talking about. Anybody in the United States who is an appraiser, certified or otherwise, that is appraising personal property, can appraise anything other than real estate. So rather than your house and your land, they can appraise your car and your motorcycles and your boats and your trailers and your sheep, your farm animals, your jewelry, your art, your collections. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's not a house or real estate, they can appraise those items as a personal property appraiser. So the litmus test is if that appraiser appraises something for you, and let's just say you find, Bob Jones, who attended a certification course somewhere, and he calls himself an appraiser, so he does an appraisal for you on a painting. And you want to get this painting on your insurance or something. So he appraises this painting for you, and then it gets burned up or damaged or lost or stolen. And then you turn that appraisal into your insurance company and you say, hey, this was lost. Well, the insurance company does not have to accept that appraisal. They can say, we don't know who this guy is, we don't know what this certification agency is, and we disagree with his valuation, what he thinks that item was worth. And if that happens, and it does happen, well then this gentleman or lady who did the appraisal for you, they may be called into a court and have to sit on a witness stand as a witness and testify as to why that item is worth what they said it was worth. So if you're having something appraised by somebody, just because they say I'm a certified appraiser doesn't necessarily mean that they meet the qualifications to be appraising the items that they're appraising for you. So just something to think about there when you're having something appraised. When somebody will call me and say, hey, I need an appraisal on something, my question is always why? Why do you want an appraisal on this item or that item? Because a lot of times they don't need it. They don't need an official written appraisal. They just want to go, I just want to know because I want to sell it. Well, I'm happy to tell them at no charge, it's worth, $200 to $300 or whatever it may be worth, that I believe that it's worth. An appraisal is an opinion. So if you go to 10 different appraisers, you may get 10 different opinions. Again, people don't always need an appraisal. They'll say they want an appraisal, but they don't really understand, why. So again, I'll ask them why. And the most appraisals that we do are for equitable distribution of property. I had a hard time getting that word out there. people need to divide up an estate, and they want to know, what is worth what. So when they start dividing it up, a husband and wife are getting a divorce. That's the most common. They want to know, how much is the bandsaw worth, and how much is the couch worth, and how much is the pool table worth, and how much is the patio set worth. And so I have done those extensively, so people can divide up assets and make sure that when they're done, there's a fair distribution there. So those are the most common type that I do. Second common type is insurance purposes. If somebody has a painting or a piece of art, and there are some facilities, there's some assisted living facilities that if you have something in there of a certain value, they'll want you to have that item appraised. So I'm not entirely sure why, but I get a lot of calls from them because people have things and they only want one item appraised. They'll have a house full of stuff, but they only need one item appraised, and I believe it's over a certain dollar amount. They need to have those items recognized as their assets. So appraisers, when they appraise something for you, they need to be there, and they need to hold it in their hand, and they need to look at it. There's a lot of online appraisal services, which are fine if you just have a Cabbage Patch doll and you just want to know what it's worth, and someone online can pay them $10 and they'll just respond and say, hey, it's worth $100, $150, or it's worth $20. So if they're doing it online and it's just for informational purposes, that's fine. That's not going to be a legal document. That's not going to be something that's going to hold up in court, or for insurance purposes, or even for an equitable distribution of assets if somebody contests that, because they need to know exactly what it is they're looking at as an appraiser. Insurance companies need to know that you're just not sending somebody a picture of something and you don't actually possess that item. So the appraiser needs to be there. The appraiser needs to look at it, touch it, and understand what it is that they're looking at in order to write a valid appraisal report. And there are different types of appraisals. One is going to be a liquidation value. So if it's just I just need to get rid of this thing, I'm taking it to auction and I want to get rid of it, that's going to be one value. Another value is going to be a fair market value. Fair market value is what most appraisals are based on. And fair market value is what the U.S. Treasury defines as neither party having the compulsion to either buy it and neither party having the compulsion to sell it, and both being aware of the relevant facts. So when you sell something to a neighbor or a friend or to a stranger online, that's pretty much fair market value. Liquidation value may mean you're kind of desperate. You need to get rid of something today, and you'll take what you can get for it. So that's a liquidation value. And then the insurance value is going to be the highest of the values, and that's going to be if you need to replace that item. So that's what the insurance value is going to be. And there are different factors affecting the value of items. And let me say something else about appraisers while I'm thinking about it here. Is also, as an appraiser, you have to remove yourself from any interest in the item that you're appraising. So if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I got this Rolex watch, I want to sell it to you, can you write me an appraisal on it? It's like, whoa, it's kind of a conflict of interest there. So I wouldn't want to write somebody, well, it's illegal, first of all, according to my certification that I hold, is you cannot have a interest in purchasing the item and appraising it at the same time, because again, it's a complete conflict of interest. So anybody who you're going to and you're saying, I want this, appraise it, and then I want to sell it to you, kind of take that with a grain of salt there. If you want to sell something to somebody, have it appraised by somebody else, and then you can kind of market it and try to sell it that way if that's what you're interested in doing. So enough said about that. And then there's factors affecting the appraisal of items. So you can have, and we're going to say the same item, the same condition, and it's going to be worth different prices depending on where you're located at. So we're going to say the factors influencing the value of an item. It's going to be the condition, the marketability of that item, and the location of that item, which is almost the same thing there. And there's trends, obviously, that go along with that. So things that, let's first talk about the condition, okay? Condition is just makes sense. Something that is in great condition is going to be worth more than something that is all beat up. Something that's new in the box is going to be worth more than something that's been opened and removed from the box. So condition is like the most important thing, is what condition is this thing in, because that can really impact the value. Secondly is trends, and I mean, if someone's asking you for an appraisal, you're going to put a date on that. If somebody shows up with an appraisal that was done in 1975 on we'll say an oak pedestal dining room table, and press back chairs, which was all the rage in the late 70s and early 80s, and everybody had to have one, and they sold for thousands of dollars. Nobody wants those today. So that appraisal that was done in 1975 is not going to be any good. It's not going to stand up to what the value of that item is today. So if you're going to have something appraised, it also needs to be, fairly recent. If you have appraisals on things that are 20 years old, probably 10 years old, I might want to take a look at it, or just ask somebody, did the value of this thing change? So just give an appraisal on something. If it was done some time ago, you may want to get a new appraisal on that. Also, if you move, you may want to get an item reappraised. A snowmobile is worth a lot more in Alaska than it is in Hawaii, and that's kind of a stretch as far as geographical locations and items. But just being in Virginia and have something of local interest, something historical interest to Williamsburg or something like that, is probably going to be worth more in Virginia than it's going to be worth in Oregon, unless you find that one person in Oregon who loves things from Williamsburg, Virginia. So when you move around with your items, just because you have an appraisal on that item doesn't mean that that's what the value of that item is going to be when you get to where you're going. So just something to consider. Does that come up a lot? No, it doesn't come up a lot. In fact, I don't remember it coming up at all. But I do recall seeing some appraisals that people have had that are well out of date. And some of the values have gone up on items that I would encourage them to get their item reappraised because the value's gone up. And some of the values have gone down on items, and it's just good to know that. So if they're going to distribute some assets and someone goes, oh, well, here's, mom's washstand that was worth, $600 in 1980, and you're going to get the washstand, and then I'm going to get the ring, and they're both worth $600. Well, the washstand's only worth $100 now. So again, if you have an old appraisal report, something that you may want to consider getting updated, or just ask somebody if that price is relevant today. Anyway, so that's pretty much all the time I'm going to take up today. Thanks for joining us, and I will see you next time.